Have you seen the new Korean drama, Family by Choice? Those heartwarming stories resonate with so many people because they remind us that family is about connection, not just blood ties. But what if the people you thought were your family, the ones you trusted, turned out to be something else entirely? What if they were hiding their true nature, waiting for the right moment to reveal it? Today we're diving into a chilling case from Japan, a case that left the nation stunned with its shocking twists and unanswered questions. This is the story of the infamous family-eating woman, or what the media called the piranha family. It all centers around one person, Miyoko Sumida. In 1987, a woman was reported missing. Over time, mysterious deaths and disappearances followed, but no matter how hard the police tried to investigate, the pieces just didn't come together. For decades, the cases went unsolved. Then, on November 9, 2011, a grim discovery was made in an empty warehouse in Amagasaki, Hyogo Prefecture. Inside a concrete-filled barrel, investigators found the remains of 66-year-old Kazuko Ue, a local resident. The discovery triggered a full-scale investigation, and one name kept surfacing: Miyoko Sumida, a 64-year-old grandmother and longtime resident of the city. In the same month, a woman in her 40s showed up at the police station. She was in terrible condition, covered in visible injuries that were believed to be from attempts to escape. The woman was identified as Kazuko Ue's eldest daughter. After being questioned, it was revealed that she was a victim of imprisonment and abuse, further complicating the case. Fast forward to October 14, 2012. Police discovered 3 bodies in an unoccupied house in Amagasaki. The owner of the house, 88-year-old Nori Minayoshi, had been missing since 2003, but the rent was still being paid by his granddaughter, Rui, for the past 8 years. Once again, the name Miyoko Sumida came up. Rui, it turned out, was married to Miyoko's son, linking her directly to the case. Then on October 30th, 2012, another barrel filled with concrete was discovered, this time at Honase Harbor in Okayama Prefecture. Inside was the body of 53-year-old Jiro Hashimoto. The method of disposal was eerily similar, and police immediately suspected Miyoko and her circle. An anonymous tip added fuel to the investigation, revealing that several people who visited Miyoko's luxurious penthouse had gone missing. On December 5, 2011, Miyoko Sumida was arrested for causing injury and body abandonment. However, this arrest was only the beginning. It opened the door to a case so complex and horrifying that it became one of Japan's most infamous crimes. And what they uncovered was beyond anything they could have imagined. A bizarre network of multiple families entangled in horrific incidents spanning decades. And at the center of this web was Miyoko, the self-proclaimed matriarch of a pseudo-family tree that only grew more disturbing as investigators unraveled it. Miyoko Sumida was born in 1948 in downtown Amagasaki, Hyogo Prefecture, just after World War II. As the eldest child in her family, her early years seemed stable. Her parents ran a construction business, with her father earning extra income by renting rooms to workers and taking a portion of their salaries. Her mother supported her father in his work as a plasterer, and Miyoko helped out by working in a sewing company. She had 2 brothers, an older one 6 years her senior and a younger one 6 years her junior. Her dad had a good job and solid connections, so it seemed like she lived a pretty comfortable life without any real struggles or hardships. However, Miyoko's life took a sharp turn when her parents divorced during her elementary school years. She stayed with her father, but he was largely absent, immersing himself in city nightlife. Miyoko often lived with her grandmother and rarely experienced the affection of either parent. By junior high school, Miyoko's reputation had begun to take shape. Feared by her classmates, she was dubbed the girl boss. She rarely attended school, but when she did, she often brought along her delinquent friends, causing unrest among students. In the early 1970s, as authorities prepared for the Osaka Expo, police swept through red light districts. Miyoko was arrested during this period for selling an underage girl to a prostitution club in Yokohama. Despite her criminal activities, Miyoko was known for her beauty, which reportedly charmed and intimidated people in equal measure. By her mid-20s, she had been divorced twice. She exuded an aura that commanded respect, especially from those in the underground world, while her neighbors kept their distance out of fear. By this time, Miyoko had left her modest upbringing behind, moving into a luxurious apartment and indulging in a lavish lifestyle. A restaurant staff member who was invited to her home 3 years before her arrest described it as dimly lit and messy, resembling a VIP bar room. She proudly displayed her collection of medals and precious tableware, estimated to be worth 200 million yen. Now we turn to the central case, the Amagasaki incident. This case involved numerous families across different periods, some overlapping, creating a tangled web of crimes. To make sense of it all, we won't examine it chronologically, but rather family by family, untangling each thread of this horrifying story. In the 90s, there were reports about Miyoko getting close to the youngest son of the Yokochi family, Kentaro Yokochi. He was in his late teens, and somehow Miyoko managed to convince him to borrow a huge sum of money from her to pay off his debt. But this wasn't all. She went further and manipulated the family into handing over their property and land to her. On top of that, she caused the family to turn against each other. No one really understood how she was able to control people like that, but investigators suspected it came from what she learned growing up. Miyoko had witnessed her father manipulate the workers who rented rooms in their house, and she seemed to take after him. The situation with the Yokochi family got even worse. Under Miyoko's influence, they were forced to do endless chores, work without rest, stand still for hours, and eventually they started harming each other in terrible ways. By 1999, things had spiraled out of control. Rumors spread that the mother of the family had died because of the abuse she endured. Tragically, not long after, the oldest son took his own life, overwhelmed with shame after losing his mother in such a horrific way. After the mother's death, Miyoko and her husband, Yutaro Azumayori, adopted the remaining sons of the Yokochi family, Kentaro, who later changed his name to Kentaro Sumida, and an unnamed brother. Kentaro eventually became involved in Miyoko's schemes, but the other brother disappeared at some point, and his whereabouts are still unknown. Another family that fell under Miyoko's influence was the Hashimoto family. Miyoko had been connected to them since 1981, possibly from her childhood, though the reasons for their connection weren't clear. The Hashimoto family included the mother, an older son named Hisashi, and a younger son named Jiro. Another person involved in this case was Miyoko Sumida, born in 1953, who came from a poor family with parents addicted to pachinko. Miyoko met Miyoko while renting a room at her house. By January 1999, at Miyoko's request, Miyoko's mother formally adopted Miyoko, making them sisters. But only 2 months after the adoption, Miyoko's mother passed away. Interestingly, back in 1987, the Hashimoto family's mother had vanished and was later declared deceased in their family register. Fast forward to September 2000, Hisashi bought a condo with a loan of 29 million yen, which is about $220,000 US. One of the guarantors for this loan was Mitsue Ondo, a woman in a relationship with Miyoko's older brother. Around this time, Hisashi also took out a group credit life insurance policy, which would pay off his mortgage in case of his death. In 2001, Miyoko married Hisashi. Then in 2005, Miyoko and Miyoko joined a tour group and visited Manzamo Cliff in Okinawa. During the trip, Hisashi, who was 51, fell off the cliff and died. Investigators discovered that Hisashi had 2 life insurance policies taken out 6 to 12 months before his death, totaling 90 million yen. The payout went to Miyoko, and the money was used to support Miyoko's lavish lifestyle. Miyoko also received 30 million yen from Hisashi's group credit life insurance. Even the condo was leveraged for a 16 million yen loan. Suspicions grew as acquaintances of Hisashi reported that his death might not have been an accident. After a legal battle that lasted 130 days, Miyoko's son, Yutaro Sumida, was sentenced to prison for his involvement in Hisashi's coerced death, 7 years after it happened. So let's fast forward to 2012. On October 30th, a mysterious barrel was found about 3 meters deep in Hinase Harbor. This wasn't just any barrel. It was filled with concrete, and inside was the body of 53-year-old Jiro Hashimoto. Investigators believe the barrel had been dumped in July 2011. Jiro had a complicated and tragic connection to Miyoko. He had lived with her for some time, but tried to escape to Tokyo around 2002. Despite his efforts, Miyoko tracked him down. She even went to Tokyo in 2005, specifically to drag him back to Amagasaki. Miyoko and her cousin, Masanori Lee, searched relentlessly for him, even stalking the area near his apartment. They reportedly identified his location by noticing his laundry on a balcony. Miyoko had commented that Jiro always smoothed out his clothes, giving away his presence. After being found, Jiro briefly returned to Amagasaki, but he tried to escape again in 2007, this time hiding in a more remote part of Tokyo. By 2009, though, the Sumida family tracked him down once more and forcibly brought him back. According to police, he spent about 2 years in Amagasaki before his life came to a horrific end. A Sumida family member later revealed that Miyoko ordered them to confine Jiro in a small space on their balcony, where he was left for days. He eventually died from dehydration and physical abuse. Much of this abuse reportedly took place in Miyoko's luxurious apartment, located on the top floor of an 8-story building. The apartment had wooden fences on the balconies and windows to block the view, making it impossible for outsiders to suspect the horrors inside. Despite its grim use, the apartment was furnished with expensive items, all paid for with money taken from the very people who were being abused there. But the story doesn't end there. Miyoko's crimes extended to other families, including the Minayoshi family. She entered their lives around 2001, introduced by her husband, who had gone to middle school with the Minayoshi family's eldest son. Miyoko quickly gained their trust and maintained a seemingly good relationship with them. By 2002, the eldest son, who worked as a school janitor, had been manipulated into quitting his job and moving into Miyoko's apartment. Soon after, he disappeared. The younger son also moved in and was coerced to giving his older brother's pension to Miyoko. The elder son was eventually found years later working under a false name at a labor lodge. He admitted to the police that he had been terrified of the Sumida family, which led him to change his identity. Meanwhile, the younger son ran away but died years later of an unrelated illness. The family's older daughter also disappeared at some point. Around 2003, Miyoko turned her attention to Hajime Minayoshi, the family's younger daughter. At the time, Hajime lived with her husband, their daughter Mariko, and their teenage daughter Rui. Miyoko initially seemed like a savior, paying off the family's debt. But Miyoko began manipulating Rui, who was already in a rebellious phase, into believing her mother and sister didn't trust her. At the same time, she provoked Hajime by asking pointed questions like, "Do you love Mariko more? Didn't you wish Rui were more like her?" This manipulation caused deep rifts in the family. Eventually, Miyoko escalated her control through violence, assaulting family members in their own home. The father suffered horrific abuse, including having his ears burned. Under Miyoko's influence, the daughters began to see their parents as villains and even physically attack them. This led to the parents divorcing, and tragically, the mother later died at the hands of the Sumida family. By 2012, Miyoko Sumida's horrific crimes were coming to light. Despite several reports to the police, many were dismissed as civil matters, allowing her actions to continue unchecked. Among her victims were Rui and Mariko, sisters from the Minayoshi family. Miyoko manipulated them into moving in with her as part of her family. Rui, then a teenager, dropped out of school, changed her name to Hana, and married Miyoko's son, Yutaro. Unlike Rui, Mariko resisted Miyoko's control, which made her a target for both physical and mental abuse. Mariko eventually got married and worked at a software company, but she attempted to escape Miyoko's grip. She even tried to change her passport and flee the country. But in 2007, Miyoko tracked her down and brought her back to Amagasaki. Heartbreakingly, she was captured with the help of her own sister, Rui, who had become Miyoko's loyal accomplice. Mariko was confined in a shed under appalling conditions. Rui, acting as Miyoko's enforcer, tortured her sister and ultimately ordered her death in 2008. Miyoko's husband was also implicated in Mariko's abuse and sentenced to prison, although his specific role remained unclear. The horrifying discoveries didn't stop there. On October 14, 2012, 2 decomposed bodies were found under an abandoned house that had belonged to Rui's grandmother, Nori Minayoshi. One body was identified as Mitsue Ondo, the girlfriend of Miyoko's elder brother. She was found partially mummified, partially skeletal, and encased in concrete, having died about a year earlier. The second body was identified as Mariko. A day later, a third body, wrapped in a sheet, was found. It belonged to Takashi Tanimoto, Rui's uncle. These bodies were found in Nori Minayoshi's old home, which had been unoccupied since 2003, but was still maintained by Rui, who paid the rent using Nori's pension money. Later in December 2012, another body, believed to be Nori Minayoshi herself, was discovered in an abandoned shed in Takamatsu. This brought the victim count even higher, revealing the extent of Miyoko's control over the family. Turning back to 2009, Miyoko's manipulation extended to the Oe family. It all started when she contacted Hiroyuki Kawamura, a 42-year-old man, about a complaint involving her stroller. Hiroyuki became captivated by her charisma and soon fell under her influence. Miyoko convinced Hiroyuki, his wife Yumi, and their family, Yumi's mother Kazuki Ue and her sister Kae, to move into a one-bedroom apartment near Miyoko's home. Hiroyuki was persuaded to quit his job and start a coffee shop, even giving Miyoko a 3 million yen check to help with the business. Over time, Miyoko's control grew more oppressive. She restricted the family's water usage to half a liter a day and limited their toilet use to twice daily. Hiroyuki eventually divorced Yumi, but they continued living together under Miyoko's rule. Within the family, Miyoko imposed a hierarchy, with Kazuki ranked lowest. She endured the most severe abuse, both verbal and physical. On November 9, 2011, Kazuki's body was found encased in concrete, hidden in a warehouse. This time, the police arrested Miyoko and her cousin, Masanori Lee, for murder and body abandonment. Hiroyuki, Yumi, and Kae were also arrested for their roles in Kazuki's abuse and death. Kae, who appeared at the police station in a terrible physical state, revealed just how deeply Miyoko's manipulation had corrupted the family. Miyoko's arrest marked the unraveling of her crimes. An anonymous tipster informed the police about numerous individuals who had entered Miyoko's home but had never been seen again. Even during her detention, Miyoko expressed a desire to end her life, telling officers, "I want to die. How can I kill myself?" On December 12, 2012, during a routine check at 6:21 a.m., Miyoko was found dead in her cell. She had used a black long-sleeve t-shirt to hang herself under her futon blanket. Her death marked the abrupt end of her direct involvement, but it also meant her accomplices received lighter sentences since she was seen as the primary perpetrator. Investigators discovered that at least 8 victims had died due to Miyoko's manipulations. She didn't directly kill anyone, but coerced others into carrying out her horrific deeds, much like the infamous Futoshi Matsunaga. It also revealed that in each family she targeted, at least one member was forced to abuse or kill another. Miyoko ran her crimes like a hierarchy, with herself as the matriarch, Miyoko Sumida as her treasurer, Masanori as the bodyguard, and Rui as the successor. Her sons, Yutaro and Kentaro, also played significant roles. Neighbors described the Sumida family as intimidating and unapproachable. One family even moved out because their baby's crying disturbed Miyoko. In court, Yutaro received 17 years in prison. Mariko's husband, Yasushi, was sentenced to 15 years. Miyoko and Kentaro received 21 years. Miyoko's husband, Yutaro, got 21 years. Rui was sentenced to 23 years, and Masanori Lee was given life imprisonment. These sentences were criticized as too lenient, particularly since Miyoko's death meant she never faced justice, and her death diminished the severity of charges against her accomplices. The Hyogo Police Department faced backlash for failing to place Miyoko under proper watch, which allowed her to escape justice and left many questions about the full extent of her crimes unanswered. The horrifying case of Miyoko Sumida revealed its underlying motive during the 4th hearing: money. Miyoko testified that their monthly income was approximately 700,000 yen, while their expenses ranged from 1.2 to 1.3 million yen, leaving them with substantial debts. To sustain their lavish lifestyle and pay off these debts, the Sumida family resorted to manipulating and exploiting others, forcing their victims to hand over money, pensions, and property. This case is often compared to the infamous Futoshi Matsunaga case, as both involved the imprisonment and abuse of families using psychological manipulation rather than direct violence. Miyoko was reportedly inspired by Matsunaga's methods, incorporating his tactics of mind control along with the coercive strategies she had learned from her father. Despite these parallels, the details of the abuse remain vague. However, some accounts, including those from neighbors, describe disturbing incidents. One neighbor reported witnessing Miyoko physically assaulting a 60-year-old person in public while screaming profanities. Despite reporting this to the police, the complaint was dismissed as a civil matter. This pattern of neglect by authorities was a recurring theme. Victims, including the Yuchi family, tried to report Miyoko's crimes, but their pleas were ignored, with police categorizing the incidents as family conflicts. Even when neighbors witnessed outright abuse, such as the Yuchi family's mother being beaten by the Sumida family, police failed to take action. The lack of intervention allowed the Sumida family to continue their reign of terror, ultimately resulting in more deaths and suffering. When these failures came to light, the police faced significant public backlash. The head of the police department issued a formal apology, bowing deeply during a press conference to acknowledge their negligence. However, this did little to quell public outrage, as the case's resolution left many feeling unsatisfied and betrayed by the justice system. Miyoko's death marked the abrupt end of her direct accountability, leaving her accomplices to face lighter sentences. The bereaved families and the public at large were left with a sense of injustice. Protests demanding accountability and reforms have been held regularly, reflecting the lingering anger and frustration over how the case was handled. The case is a chilling reminder of the dangers of unchecked manipulation and systemic failures. It raises profound questions about justice and accountability. Was Miyoko's death truly the end of the case, or does it leave too many unanswered questions? Did the victims and their families receive the justice they deserved, or were they failed by a system that prioritized bureaucracy over human lives? So this was one complicated case. So what do you think about this case? Do you think justice was served, or does the lack of resolution leave too much unfinished? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and that is all for today. Thanks for watching.